Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we are tackling one of the most mysterious, most debated books ever written, the Book of Revelation. You know the one. It's packed with symbols, beasts, and prophecies that have just captivated, and, let's be honest, confused people for centuries. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into decoding the apocalypse and, why it's so tricky. Then we'll look at the three big historical lenses and that all-important millennium question. After a quick tour of the main end times theories, we'll see how one proposed roadmap puts it all together. And finally, we'll talk about why any of this actually matters. So, let's just start at the very beginning. Before we can even try to decode the apocalypse, we have to ask a really basic question, one that pretty much everyone who opens this book asks themselves. I mean, really, why is this one book so famously tough? Well, for a lot of people, all the wild imagery, we're talking dragons, multi-headed beasts, strange numbers, and these super complex prophecies, it can just feel overwhelming. And that's exactly why it has led to countless different interpretations over the centuries, from folks who think it's all ancient history to others who see it as a literal script for our future. And that right there brings us to a crucial point. You can't really decode Revelation without first understanding how it's being decoded. Think of it like this. Different people have different keys to unlock this book. The foundational assumptions they start with, those are the keys. So let's take a look at the first major key. The first huge interpretive key is all about your perspective on time. When you read this, are you reading about the distant past, the ongoing present, or the far-off future? Your answer changes the meaning of absolutely everything. What's so interesting here is how pretty much all the different interpretations can be boiled down to these three main views on time. You've got the preterist view, that comes from a Latin word for past, which sees it as a story that's basically already happened, mostly about the early church fighting the Roman Empire. Then there's the historicist view, which sees it as a symbolic map of all of church history, playing out from the first century all the way to today. And finally, the futurist view, which reads it as a prophecy mainly about things that are still to come. Now let's move to the next key. And honestly, this one is at the heart of most modern debates. It all revolves around a single, specific period of time mentioned in Chapter 20, the millennium. Seriously? How you answer the question of the millennium changes everything. Is it a literal, physical 1,000-year kingdom here on Earth? Or is it symbolic of the current church age? This one concept creates the major dividing lines in what's known as eschatology, and that's just the fancy theological term for the study of end times. So, with that in mind, let's explore the main theories that have popped up around this 1,000-year question. Each one gives us a completely different timeline for what the future looks like. First up, we have amillennialism. It literally means no millennium. Now, this view suggests that the 1,000-year reign is happening right now, but spiritually. It's the time between Christ's resurrection and his final return, where he's reigning in heaven and through the church here on earth. Next is postmillennialism, which is a much more optimistic take on things. It suggests that the church will be so successful in spreading the gospel that it'll actually bring about a golden age of peace on earth. That's the millennium. And only after this 1,000-year period of progress will Christ come back. And that brings us to premillennialism. This is basically the opposite of postmillennialism. It holds that the world is going to get worse, not better, leading up to Christ's physical return before the millennium even starts. His return is the event that kicks off that literal 1,000-year reign on Earth. But, even within this one view, there's a major split. And this slide just perfectly lays out the key difference. Both of these views believe in a future 7-year period of intense crisis, what's known as the tribulation. But the million-dollar question is, will the church be here for it? Historical premillennialism says yes, but this other view, called dispensational premillennialism, which sees God working differently with different groups in different eras, says no way. The church will be raptured or taken up to heaven right before it all kicks off. Okay, so now that we have all the keys, let's see how they can be used to unlock a single, coherent timeline. We're going to look at one proposed roadmap, which is a type of premillennialism that believes the church will go through the tribulation. So if you follow this map, you can see a really specific sequence. That 7-year period gets split right in half. The first 3.5 years, you see these key figures like the two witnesses doing their ministry. The midpoint is when the Antichrist shows up, which kicks off the second 3.5 years, known as the Great Tribulation. This whole period comes to a climax with Christ's return, the rapture of believers, and then the start of the millennium. This approach gives you a really structured way to read the book from start to finish. It basically sees chapters 6 through 19 as a detailed, chronological play-by-play of that final 7-year period. And in this view, the rapture isn't some escape plan from the tribulation, but the triumphant gathering of believers at the very, very end. So, we've walked through the different historical lenses, the millennial views, and even a super detailed timeline. But why does any of this matter to the average person today? I mean, what is the point of all this complexity? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which timeline you find the most convincing. The purpose of the book is always the same. It's meant to be the grand finale of the entire biblical story. It's a message of hope, designed to give assurance that no matter how much chaos and suffering we see, the story ends in victory, in justice, and in restoration. So the crucial takeaway here isn't about picking a winner or proving one theory right and all the others wrong. It's about being equipped with the main maps that scholars and theologians have used for centuries to explore this challenging, but, let me tell you, deeply rewarding book. And that leaves us with a final thought. Now that you have the keys, the different lenses for time, the different views on the millennium, which of these frameworks brings this ancient, mysterious text into the clearest focus for you? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.